Well, on the same day that the Monforts finally go public and suggest that, yeah, they do actually need some outside help, a rumor starts circulating that Bud Black might be coming back to the Colorado Rockies organization. We react to that and a lot more coming up next on the DNVR Rockies Podcast. It's a Victory Monday here on this beautiful Monday, now afternoon, 12:01 Mountain Time. Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies Podcast, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app, use code DNVR365, place a bet for $5. You can get $150 back in bonus bets. And we got a nice little victory on Sunday that we get to celebrate, or at least enjoy a little bit. 2 days of good vibes for Rockies Nation here. And I'm excited to be with you. And we are going to talk about the win a little bit later in the show. We have a lot to talk about in this Monday podcast. Hank is going to be joining us as he wraps up the Broncos show. Spence is out of town. He is doing some vacation stuff with the family. So he, once again, is going to be missing a Victory podcast. But shout out to Spence for hanging in there, enjoying some good time away from the Rockies, from work as well. But there was some news that popped up over the weekend that we get to talk about and react to here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. And I don't know if you guys saw this. You probably did. If you guys are diehard Rockies fans or Rockies haters or somewhere in between, you probably saw the article that came out from Denver Post, Patrick Saunders, because he was the first person, I believe, this entire year that actually got to speak and got to go on record with Rockies owner Dick Monfort and his brother, Charlie Monfort. And if you go back to before this season started, I believe it was Mark Kisla did an interview during spring training with Dick Monfort and got a little bit of a kind of behind the scenes conversation with Dick Monfort that he was able to publish. And so we kind of got to see a little bit into Dick Monfort's expectations going into this season. That's also when Dick kind of went on record and was like, hey, check back with me in July, regarding selling the team. And is that something that he's planning on doing? So that was kind of our conversation that we were able to see with Dick Monfort before the season started. And now we're getting to see for the first time Dick Monfort on the record after this historically bad season that the Rockies are starting to have. And so we're going to react to that. We're going to share all of our thoughts on that. And then, of course, the follow-up rumor that came out that Bud Black would possibly or could possibly be returning to the Rockies organization in some form of another. I had some conversations with some people I want to talk about. But before we get into any of that, welcome into the show, Henry Chisholm.
Oh, thank you.
Happy to have you back.
It's one of those things, when you have a show, and so you're driving in and you're kind of thinking it, you're thinking through all the stuff that you believe about whatever you're talking about. When you come straight from the Broncos show, there's no let's think through my nuanced whatever. Yeah.
No, it's this is a new take for you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And you see I guess your tweet was the first one I saw about Bud Black potentially coming back. It's well, that's just not something a team ever does. You think okay, I guess Vance Joseph came back to be the defensive coordinator for the Broncos.
Yep.
5 years after he was the head coach, a little bit different.
Clint Hurdle, a decade after. Yeah,
exactly. But to fire the guy and then bring him back, I'm not sure if it was in your tweet or the story. Might have just been the story. It's he's been telling people close to him that he's not done with baseball yet. It's but there's 29 other teams that you could go to.
Fair.
It's a crazy decision. I like the idea of if you just took the Bud Black name away from it and looked at his resume and said former major league pitcher, has a bunch of manager experience coming in, kind of overseeing the pitching. It all makes so much sense until you say the part about how it's the guy you just fired a month ago.
Yeah, sure.
It's of course, how is there nobody else that could do this? There's nobody who's pretty similar to Bud Black who's out there but wasn't fired a month ago.
Yeah, I do think it was incredibly ironic and very Rockies of this for it to happen in the way that it happened. For the same day that the Denver Post goes out and publishes an article where Charlie Monfort and kind of Dick Monfort says, you know what? We've kind of realized that we need some outside sources. We need some help from outside of the organization to get on this franchise and kind of steer us in the right direction.
Yep.
And then within like 6 hours, the news comes up that, you know, Bud Black is rumored to be in the running to replace, I believe it was Steve Foster, who, just a backstory on Steve Foster, by the way. I don't think he's with the organization. I don't think he's been with the organization for a while. We were talking about it in the press box, and to my understanding, Foster has left the organization a while ago, and that position has just kind of remained in limbo. And so that's...
And what's the name of the position?
It's the director of pitching, but
That's right.
Patrick Saunders wrote it in as pitching coordinator. I think you can kind of put it a bunch of different ways.
So for example,
it's the manager of the, like, it's in the draft and development world of the Rockies. So you're not like necessarily out there. You're not the pitching coach. You're not out there on the field with the pitchers. You're kind of shaping the direction of the pitchers that you bring into the franchise.
Okay.
Is my understanding of
And
it.
that makes it a little bit better. Because like it's not like the Broncos. It's like, oh, week 5, who's your offensive coordinator? Oh, just don't have one. Like you don't have, it's like we don't have like our scouting director.
Sure.
And it's like, but we're working on it.
But you have other guys who are still making those decisions, other guys who are knowledgeable, you would like to think, in that world. So it's not like that position within itself. It almost feels like the what is Charlie Blackmon, the like assistant to the GM or whatever it is, special assistant to the GM. It feels very much like that, where it's like he's involved to a point, but he's not, you know, doing the day-to-day coaching. He's not on the team plane, that kind of thing. Regardless, before we get any deeper into any of this, Patrick Saunders did make a post this morning saying that he kind of spoke to some sources, some people close to the matter, and out of full transparency, Patrick Saunders is very close with Bud Black. I mean, he was texting Bud Black during the game yesterday. So he very well might have just gone to Bud Black and kind of asked him straight up, are you going to do this? He put out the post saying, yeah, that's kind of watered down. Like we're not expecting that anymore. Those rumors are a little bit, you know, they've been a little bit parachuted, and we can kind of move on from that. So it looks like most likely Bud Black is not going to be coming back to the organization. But to my understanding, at least a conversation has been had. And the fact that there was even a conversation is insane to me.
Yep.
And it's very on brand.
It is so on brand, it hurts. I mean, why would that be the route you go? And whenever we do this, we have this same kind of conversations about, like, it's not like people are lining up to work for the Rockies. And this was the last couple of years, people want to fire Bud Black. It's like, well, look at this guy who's just sitting out there. He's unemployed. You could bring him in. He'd be a better manager. And then you have to say, well, would he actually want to come manage the Rockies?
Yeah.
Because most people are too smart to do that. Like, they know that it's kind of career suicide. They know all the flaws. They know whatever.
It's just bad optics, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's just never, it just doesn't bring good energy. It doesn't bring good vibes.
Totally.
You know, it's a sinking ship that you're,
Yes.
you know, jumping on.
Exactly. And that means that if you want to fill this role, you're probably not getting the top guy for this role. Odds are whoever you bring in won't be as qualified as Bud Black is. Like, I truly believe that just because, like, I mean, again, he's probably overqualified for the role in some ways.
And he knows how to pitch at elevation.
Exactly.
He knows all of that, or at least he's experienced in that. Not to say he knows how, but yeah.
And at the same time, it's just like
what are we doing?
No, of course you don't do this. Of course not. Of course not. Because this could never happen. It'd be one thing if you had made this decision when you fired him. Like, if you had said, like, hey, he's not managing anymore, we're going to move him into this position. Like, still strange, still not something I would do, but at least it kind of makes sense. But to say, nope, you're done, get out of here, and then call him back a month later, like, a little crazy.
It's funny because I've seen different approaches. I've seen different reactions to this, because obviously there was a lot of reactions to my tweet yesterday, which was following the Bob Nightingale article where he kind of announced this rumor. Mark, you know, reacts kind of saying Buddy is pretty solid with the pitchers, but it's just way too soon. But taking the idea that, like, hey, Buddy was actually handled the pitchers pretty well. I saw a lot of other people kind of saying, you know, they didn't think that Buddy did a good job with the pitchers, that the pitchers have never really progressed very well since Bud Black was the manager, or that his mindset on pitchers is outdated. I kind of saw both trains, you know, kind of on those tracks. But the interesting thing to me, I think, is the question of, like, is there a world in which Bud Black would be a good fit for the Rockies? And I think obviously the answer is no, currently? You know, I mean, today the answer is absolutely no. It's probably that for the next 5+ years. But you talk about like, is there a statute of limitations where like after 5 years, if the Rockies are a better team, maybe they've brought in some outside help in other areas and you feel better about things and you say, you know what, pitching just still hasn't come around and we need someone who's pitched at elevation, who's had experience with that. You could maybe make the argument that Bud Black could be a good guy to bring in at that point because he has experience building a pitching rotation at elevation. But I mean, I'm really trying to sell it here. I just don't think Bud Black should be in the consideration for Rocky's position ever. I think that time has come and gone.
Totally. I think you're just at the point where we want new people to try new things.
Yeah.
Because
move on.
Like if Bud is in here trying to solve the pitching problem, whatever it may be, how he's been a part of a lot of these decisions. We've probably tried his best idea. We've probably tried his second best idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we're down to like, hey, here's my 5th best idea for doing this. And it's like, why not just bring in somebody new, somebody who hasn't really tried anything?
Yeah.
And it just, this is a team that needs freshness and newness more than anything else. And that's why hiring the guy you just fired is the worst way to go about that.
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting because I was talking to one of our sales guys, Austin, who's a diehard Rockies fan, and he was like, it's like when you break up with someone, like you break up with your college girlfriend, and you know you kind of go through this period of like, I'm kind of sad, you know, like I don't know how I feel about this, you know, I'm not in a good place. So I'm going to go and I'm going to bring that girlfriend back. And I'm not going to make her my official girlfriend again. Yeah. She's still my ex. But I'm going to talk to her a little bit,
Generally
right? Like,
we're
just going to kind of keep her in the picture. It's like, no.
Usually
That's never a good thing. Yeah, move on. Move on, Rockies. Don't bring back the
especially
old
when
ex.
you've tried that for 30 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially when you have another one of your exes still in your phone in Clint Hurdle.
Exactly.
Like, come on. Just let it go. Move on. We're time to change it up. Find a new girl these days, Rockies. But it was an interesting thing to think about. I did hear from some sources who are very close to Bud Black saying that he actually does have offers from other teams in front office roles and pitching coach roles, whatever that looks like. Similar roles that what we were talking about with the Rockies. So I don't see why he would even want to come back into this Rockies organization just for his own personal sake. So
doesn't want to move, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want to move,
That's
but
it.
I mean, he's in San Diego, man.
True.
I would not be shocked if he ends up on Dave Roberts' payroll at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like good buddies. You know, they live right next to each other in San Diego, which isn't that far from LA. I would not be surprised if Bud Black is a coach and/or decision maker in the Dodgers organization within the next year and a half.
It would make sense.
I did get it kind of confirmed through Patrick that Bud does not want to retire. He wants to get back into baseball. So I do think we will see Bud Black back in baseball here sometime soon, maybe even as early as this year, but it will not be for the Rockies, despite what Bob Nightingale says. We got a lot to talk about here on the show because we did get to hear from Charlie Monfort and Dick Monfort on their thoughts on the Rockies and where they are right now, their expectations for the Rockies moving forward. So I want to talk about that as we continue on. I also, there's some interesting things to look at when you look at that article, and we'll take our first break before we get there. But one of the big pieces that stood out to me was that despite Dick Monfort going on record and saying, you know what, I understand, I think that it might be time for us to bring in some outside sources, he kind of went back to his old habits of blaming, you know, the insular hiring that the Colorado Rockies do on the intricacies of playing at altitude. And I have a lot of thoughts on that because it seems like that's kind of becoming a crux for us here in Colorado, that this altitude is keeping us from getting outside of our comfort zone in a way. So I want to talk about that and a lot more coming up after this break. Well, folks, whether you're on the road, at home, or somewhere in between, First Bank makes banking easy, convenient, and secure. Their mobile banking app allows you to check balances, pay friends, and manage your money anytime, anywhere. And here's the best part. Open a new First Bank checking account today, and you could earn $300. First Bank is all about helping you stay on track. Their tools make it simple to stay in control of your finances without any of that hassle. No matter where life takes you, First Bank gives you the freedom to bank how and when it works best for you. So if you're ready for better banking and the chance to earn a little extra, head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus to open your account. Bank how you want, when you want with First Bank. Certain restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. Also, folks, if you are in the market to get your floors replaced, because it's summer, we know the ground is wet sometimes outside. You're tracking a lot of mud and dirt and gravel inside the house. You've got, your dogs running around, like whatever that looks like. It might just be a good time to knock out that floor project that you've been stacking up on for years now. And Empire Today is the best place to go if you are looking to replace your floors. We've said it so many times. They've replaced all of our floors here in the studios so that when our producers, Dion and Yaya, mess up all of our studio floors, they hold up because Empire Today uses the best materials. Their installation is as good as you could expect. I mean, it is all really good. And their customer service is top notch as well. They make sure that they get the best floor that you want, not just the best floor that you need, but also the floor that you want. So schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. DNVR listeners can receive $350 discount when using promo code DNVR. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount when you use code DNVR. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DNVR for full details. All right. So there was a quote that stood out to me. Patrick Saunders, incredible article. If you guys have not read that article already in the Denver Post, check that out. He sat down with Charlie Monfort, the brother of Dick Monfort, and also a co-owner of the Colorado Rockies, to kind of talk about his sobriety, which was actually really cool, just from a human level, to hear Charlie, doing better on his sobriety. But from a baseball perspective, to kind of hear about Charlie's perspective, and then also got to talk to Dick Monfort about his perspective. And Dick had a quote in there that I thought was really interesting because, he was talking about Charlie saying that Charlie thinks that the Rockies need to bring in a new set of eyeballs. The fans have been saying that for years. Now we've got an owner going on record and saying that. And so Dick was kind of responding to that and saying, while I kind of agree, I have some other thoughts on this. And this was the quote that stood out to me. Dick Monfort said, quote, "We have this dynamic of playing somewhere where nobody else plays. It's easier for an outsider to say, well, I would do this or I would have done that. This is a tough place to play. It has its little intricacies that others don't." End quote. To me, when you're talking about all of the problems that the Rockies have and the way that they think about things, the way that they process things, it feels like a lot of it comes back to this idea that we play at elevation, so nobody knows what we've gone through. Only we are the ones who know how to play at elevation. And my first reaction to that is, you also haven't figured it out.
Yep.
Like, you're saying that nobody else in baseball knows how to figure out what playing at elevation would look like. Well, you are also proving to us that you don't know either. So what's the harm in going and bringing someone else in to change it up a little bit, throw something at the wall, maybe even get the elevation thing out of their brain for once and say, you know what, I'm just going to take a baseball approach to this and plan this as if I was any other baseball team.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's something to that. There are a lot of teams that have something they have to deal with. Whether the Giants, for example, tough to hit home runs. The wind's always blowing in, ball doesn't really travel.
Yeah,
that's
Cubs
very unique there too. Yeah, exactly. Yankees, small park, easy to hit home runs. Very unique situation. Red Sox, even short corner. You got the big wall. Like every team, that's part of what makes baseball so different, is that there are all these different factors that kind of play in. Some teams are domes. Some teams have weather. Some teams have humidity. Some team, every team has something that's kind of unique. Coors, though, is probably the most impactful easily of any park.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's, you
could even argue almost any sport too.
Probably.
There's not a lot of other sports that have like an X factor of that nature.
Totally. Like even like you think like Green Bay in the winter and the snow.
Sure.
But I still say like there are other teams that are pretty cold, like that are pretty
Denver
similar.
Can get pretty cold here in the winter
So
too.
I think it probably is the case that the Rockies have more of that sort of thing that they have to deal with. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they've learned something. I'm sure that they've had ideas. I'm sure that they've seen things really not work. But at the same time, things aren't going well enough to say like, hey, we can't afford to bring somebody new in who might try something we've already tried and decide we didn't like, because like odds are you're not going to be good next year. Odds are you're probably not going to be good the year after that. And so if it takes a couple of years of like piecing things together, it kind of is what it is at this point. So if there was ever a time to bring outsiders in, even if it means that, you know, hopefully you're taking big steps forward in terms of like just baseball in general, build a good baseball team. What are the smart approaches? What are the good teams doing right now? Even if that means you're taking a small step back in terms of the Coors specific, Rockies specific dynamics, like this would be kind of the time to accept that it would take a few years to get those where you want them to be.
Yeah, and Burge makes a great point. That's why you should have the largest and most advanced analytics department in baseball. 100%.
You would think.
And that's where I think we kind of, as Rockies fans, as Rockies analysts, like we kind of keep running into this frustration wall when you see stuff like that. Is it's like you haven't figured it out, and you're also not putting in the resources necessary to figure it out, to at least from an optics perspective, right? Like I'm not in the organization. I don't know the conversations that go on behind closed doors. But what I can see is what every other fan sees, and that's that the Rockies are still on pace to be one of, if not the worst team in the history of baseball. And so you just can't say that, even a part of what we're doing right now is working. You have to scrap everything and start from scratch when you hit rock bottom in the way that you are this year.
And I also think that sometimes when people talk about it, they think that there's like this one time, like, oh, we figured out what to do at altitude. It's like, that's not necessarily how it works, because there's always those changes. I mean, what's the thing this year with like Major League Baseball didn't change their balls at all, but for some reason they're flying farther. Or no, are they flying less far?
It's the opposite.
Yeah, they aren't flying as far. So people are wondering like,
They're
is
dead baseballs.
What is going on here? Nobody knows. That's one of those things where at Coors you say, wait, how are things changing here? Because that is going to change differently in Colorado than it changes other places. If it turns out the laces are just a tiny bit bigger and nobody realized, and that's why it's catching more air, well, guess what? Less air resistance here. The effects are going to be minimized. There's always going to be these little things that come up because it's Coors, and things that happen in baseball. Like we talked about the torpedo bats. This is the torpedo bat season,
which Hunter Goodman is still using, by the way.
Yeah, and it seems to be a
seems
good
to be
idea.
working.
Yeah,
for him at least.
But I'm sure that there's something that you could find about torpedo bats at Coors. Not something that like we could find by going on some website, but if you were an analytics type person, I'm sure the torpedo bats in some way affect Coors. It might be so small that it doesn't matter, but not only do they not have like the big strategy figured out of like, we want pitchers who throw curveballs, or we want pitchers who throw fastballs, or whatever it may be, or like we should build a team with more contact and less power. First, you figure that out, and then hopefully because of that big analytics department, you're able to keep figuring things out as you go, even if you're the second one on them, because then you figure out how it works at Coors. So it's not like this one-time solve it all, I don't think. I think you even go back to in 2002, they start the Humidor. Before that, 900 runs in 5 of the 6 previous seasons. No 900 run season since. Only one 850 run season. Like, such a massive effect. And with the biggest outfield in all of baseball, again, you would think more contact, less power. And that's just like the starting point. And who knows if there's even something weird that would make you think that actually, no, you want whatever, but with whatever. So yeah, they need to invest in that or something.
It's interesting because Lane says we need to find our identity. And identity is such a fascinating part of the Colorado Rockies because you could make the argument, a very good argument, that the Rockies have never found their identity. They've had moments. You had the Blake Street Bombers. That was their identity
and
at
then,
the time.
Boom, here comes the Humidor.
Yeah, and then it was just gone. And then you became this, like Sean was saying, you become this sinker ball team with Aaron Cook, and thinking that like if we were just a ground ball team, like we're going to be this unstoppable force, and we figured it out. And then you realize that doesn't work, or baseball is just evolving. That's the point, though. It doesn't matter where you play. And yes, the X factor at Coors Field in Colorado is significantly more than other than other stadiums and other areas of baseball. However, baseball as a sport is constantly evolving. The baseball that we see today is different than the baseball we saw 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 100 years ago. So you have to be willing to invest in the resources necessary to evolve with that. And also be, I almost think, humble enough, flexible enough, willing enough to allow change to happen, to not say we're going to be set in our own ways, to not say this is what worked for us 10 years ago, so we're going to just try to keep working that, kind of beating that into the ground. It's like, be willing to recognize when you're wrong and when things need to change. And I think the Rockies are starting to see that now, unfortunately, at the expense of one of the worst seasons in the history of baseball. But it's taken them year after year after year of losing seasons to figure out, we need to start evolving. We need to start adjusting. And all of those quotes keep coming out from all of those national baseball writers saying the Rockies are 10 years behind everyone else in baseball. That cannot be happening. That's not an elevation thing. That is a Rockies thing.
Yep. And I think this is something that I think Jeff Bridich was good at. You go back to, like, he built the Bridich barrier. I'm from the bullpen. Now those fences go up, whereas it used to just be the low fence all the way through. Now it goes bigger. And the idea was, our pitchers are never going to be dominant here because it's just tough to build a dominant, consistent pitching staff when you're having to switch from altitude to no altitude to altitude to no altitude. And so because of that, if we're just going to never really have a dominant pitching staff, let's turn some home runs into doubles and triples. And I don't know that the results would say it's good, but you tried something. You found something. And the problem with Jeff Bridich was that he was not a good GM, but at the very least, you had the attempt to do some of that stuff.
Sure.
And then ever since then, you promoted the guy who was behind Jeff Bridich and said, this is a guy who probably isn't quite as innovative, but also, I wouldn't say there's any reason to believe that Bill Schmidt is a good GM. You can't look back at the moves. Tyler Freeman for Nolan Jones. Good move. But again, it's tough
what are we doing here?
Look at everything we've done the past few years and be like, we're on the right path.
Future of our franchise, Tyler Freeman.
And Jeff Bridich, bad overall, but at least he had that push. And it's because you brought somebody in from somewhere else who, again, he was a Harvard guy and apparently really annoying about it and all that sort of stuff. But at the very least, he was an outsider who was willing to look into that sort of thing, come up with something.
Anything at this point. I will say, I give Dick credit for this follow-up that he said after that quote. This was his follow-up to that last quote I read. He said, quote, "But I agree that what has gone on over the last few years is not representative of what we want. I think there are a lot of reasons for that, but it probably is time to have somebody who has a fresh opinion, a fresh set of eyes. I'm not opposed to bringing people in from the outside." So him saying I'm not opposed to bringing people in from the outside is a step in the right direction. I personally would have liked to hear him say, I'm going to be bringing a fresh set of eyes in.
Or a bunch of them.
Or a whole gaggle of new
staff.
eyes. Whatever you call a bunch of eyes all brought together. But him saying I'm not opposed to it is thinking the right way. It's a step in the right direction. But the Rockies just need a heck of a lot more than what we're seeing right now. And I will say, we have been seeing a step in the right direction from the Rockies. The Rockies have the second best OPS in baseball in the month of June, right?
They have a losing record in June, but barely.
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 And we do
Dodgers up next.
we do have was it the same amount of wins in the month of June as we did in March, April, and May combined? June is a significantly better month. If you could have put 9 wins together in, let's just say, April and May each, so 18 wins, between those last 2 months, and then had the 9 wins here, we're having very different conversations at this point in the season. So things still need to change. There's a lot of new faces that we hope to be talking about within the Rockies organization within the next couple of years. But it's good to see recognition, and I think that's what we were looking for from Dick, was at least. And to answer a question, I think it was from Drew, who asked, do we actually think that he's going to sell the team? We've said this before. He's not going to sell the team, so we need to be realistic here in recognizing there needs to still, if he's not going to sell the team, there needs to be changes that are made. That are within the best interest of the organization, and that is a step in the right direction, bringing in new people. Again,
over under on him actually bringing some in from the outside. Yes, they'll bring somebody in because they recognize it's a problem. They want the Rockies to win also, and
Yeah.
It has become so obvious that you need somebody, whether it's a new president, whether it's a new GM. It's again, like Bill Schmidt, you can go through the entire track record, and I don't think you say like, oh, what a terrible. It's just that, like, I don't know. If you're trying to win games 5 years from now, are you convinced Bill Schmidt is the best guy for the job? No. Like, there's got to be somebody out there who you would get more excitement, even if he doesn't deserve to be fired because there was only so much he could do and whatever else. It's time just for change and to bring somebody new in and let him build a new staff. And unfortunately, that's going to require a bunch of financial investment that I'm not sure the Rockies are set up to make, but it is what it is.
I see a lot of people in the chat saying, do you think we're going to be better than the White Sox last year? Are we on pace? We're on pace for 51, to win 51 games. Mm-hmm. I do think, and it's funny that Burge says I'm worried that we might be better than last year's White Sox because that's how traumatized we are. That we need the Rockies to be at the worst team in the history of baseball for it to warrant change. Mm-hmm. I do think they are going to be better than what they were on pace for. I think we're seeing some things starting to come into play here. But look, to be honest, I don't really care what the Rockies do on the field the rest of this year. Yes, as a fan, I do. I want to see the Rockies play well and have fun and whatever. But from a long-term perspective, all I care about this year, big picture, is what the front office does, what the ownership does. I need to see how you take, no matter what, even if they go on to win 51 games or whatever it is, this is going to be a terrible season of baseball.
Mm-hmm. 500 the rest of the way, they win 60 games.
Exactly. Like, you need to see changes. So I really only care about what the ownership and front office does. And we talked about how bad... Or we talked about the bad quotes, the quotes that I disagreed with or that I didn't like in the article. There is one quote from Charlie that I really agree with and am very glad he brought up. And I think it's one of the most important pieces when you talk about this ownership group that you have to focus on moving forward. So we got to hit this next break. But after this break, I want to share that quote and my reaction to that next. Well, folks, the Rockies have been playing a lot better baseball, and with that, it makes it a little bit harder to bet on them in our anti-Rockies parlay, which is, I guess, a good problem to have. With the Bet365 app, you can use that code DNVR365 when you sign up. Deposit $10, choose between either a bet and get offer or a first bet safety net offer. We've also got the MLB early payout offer, which is incredible. But you guys know, if you're a follower and a fan of this show, that we always do the anti-Rockies parlay. And recently, Spencer has been going against the anti-Rockies parlay. He's been doing a anti-Rockies Rocky parlay. It's getting a little fancy. Rockies have a day off today, so we have no baseball to bet on from a Rockies perspective today. But have you had any good Bet365 bets that you've been tossing around the last few days?
Money line yesterday. I think that's kind of it's kind of the new strategy. I think if you get better than 2-1 odds in a 3-game series, if you win one game, you come out ahead.
Okay.
And it's a bold strategy, and I'm not convinced it's the right way to go. But I'm tempted to. It's what I did this weekend, and we wound up slightly ahead, I believe, because of that. But it was pretty close because it's not like they were huge underdogs.
Yeah.
But yeah, you throw the money line in, or maybe you just want the plus runs. I probably just go money line.
Yeah. The Rockies were the easiest team to bet on in all of sports for a while.
Oh, totally.
Now they are being a little bit more difficult with that. But you could still have some fun on the
Freeman hit.
I know. You can still have some fun on that Bet365 app. Use that code DNVR365 when you sign up and see why it's never ordinary. Bet365 must be 21 or older, physically located here in Colorado. Gamble responsibly, please. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Also got to give a shout out to our friends right now over at Monarch Money, because we know finances can be challenging. We get it, especially with summer. I know Spencer and I have spent way too much money on the golf course. You probably have too.
Yep.
Actually, I think Lexi, your girlfriend, was actually golfing with my wife on Saturday.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's an expensive hobby. We get it.
It really is.
And you got to keep track of all of those expensive hobbies you have in the summer. And Monarch Money is the perfect place to do all of that. They've got a great app, and they have really helped me specifically to really just kind of get control of my finances. It's hard. It's hard to keep track of all of those things. And when you try to do it by just checking bank statements, or, I don't know, maybe you're old fashioned, like you like to write things down or whatever, it's just things get lost, right? with Monarch Money, they've got cool graphs, they've got great visuals, they've got all of these alerts that you can get that you can set up to keep track of all that kind of stuff. It really is, just modern financial control. There's a reason they were named the Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DNVR at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code DNVR. All right. So wrapping up our conversation on the article from Patrick Saunders with the Denver Post, the conversation with Charlie Monfort and Dick Monfort, Charlie had a great quote in here that I thought was perfect for what the Rockies really need to do organizationally. He said this, quote, "We have to get back to letting the public know that we give a crap." Amen. Mm-hmm. I think that sometimes fans think we don't care. I read about it. They think it's a money-making machine at Coors Field, which is far from the truth. But I don't blame them for thinking that. The quality of the product is not what we expect either. We have to give them at least some hope and faith that we do care and that we want to get this thing moving in the right direction, end quote. That is what we've been hoping and wanting to hear for years. For years. And it's unfortunate that it was Charlie Monfort who said it and not Dick Monfort, because Charlie is no longer really involved in all of the decision makings, although it was said that he has some play now in the decision makings now that he's sober. But we know that Dick Monfort is the one who makes the decisions. He is really your GM when it comes to things. But I agree with him completely, and I hope that he is telling his brother that day in and day out, that you've got to show us that you care. Rockies fans are preaching, tons and tons of different things. And it's not to say that you got to go listen to every single fan who's yelling from the rooftops, you got to do this, you got to do that. But at a certain point, you do have to show the fans that you are willing to learn and to change and to grow and to evolve. And I think, as this article shows, the first step into doing that is to going and getting outside sources. So it was good to see that he's talking about this image, the optics of this organization, because the optics are arguably one of the worst in all of baseball for the Rockies.
Absolutely. That's why I don't know why Dick Monfort has declined so many interview requests. Like he did take this one, of course, which
but he
is
took
good.
it by phone. I mean, his brother met with Patrick in person, and I think, and to my understanding, Patrick had a hard time getting a hold of Dick, and I believe it probably was just because Charlie talked.
Exactly, I would agree. Because like, I know it wouldn't be fun, but at the same time,
is losing 150 games fun?
Yeah, like people think so little of him at this point that it would be so easy to improve. Because again, all we were looking for is like, yeah, we think we need to make some changes. It's like, please, thank you.
God.
Like there we go. Like
it's all we needed.
It's like, what's it like living through the season? Oh, it's not fun. Like I know it's terrible for our fans, but to be watching every single day and know that this is like at least in part my fault, it's really painful, and it's kind of all I have in life. And I know that it's not going to be. Nobody wants to answer tough questions. How tough can the questions really be, though? Because you're so bad. It's not like there's these little nuances.
Well, and you know what you're going to get coming into it. It's not like you're shocked by a tough question. It's like you know exactly what Patrick's going to ask you or whoever is going to talk.
Will you consider selling the team? It's like, you know what? I don't think so, because I want the team to be my fan. Or we'll consider you do it for 10 minutes, and there's so much of it that's just like, we want it to get better. We think we need somebody from the outside. We think that this area and this area needs to be addressed. And if we do that, it'll help us in the future. Like, right now, the problem for the Rockies isn't that it's not that they're like lost in the middle of the ocean in a boat with no idea where they're going. It's the fact that like it doesn't even feel like they have like a paddle or anything. It's just like you're saying that like at least
they're sinking. They're currently sinking. There's water coming into the boat, and no one's bailing water out.
You guys aren't even doing anything. Or it's just like at the very least you could say like, we're thinking we're going to try this, and you're like, oh.
It feels like you're just hoping,
trying to do something.
It feels like you're just it's like you're sitting on the Titanic. The Titanic's sinking, and you're hoping that the boat is just going to patch itself up and just float again. And all of a sudden, it's the fastest and best boat in the world, and you did nothing, right? No, it's like no, you gotta go out and do things for this. You gotta get down there and patch the boat up, or get some rescue boats or whatever.
Because people think so little of the Rockies right now. Just hearing, we're going to try to patch the boat. It's yes, they're going to try to patch the boat. Yeah. Like that's literally all it takes at this point.
And it's so simple also that like accountability, and let's be clear here. This is by no means us celebrating and saying, all right, just because he said that, it's fixed. You still got to go do it. You got to show us things. But given how the bar is set so low for us, expectation-wise, with this ownership group of taking accountability, all of that kind of stuff, that accountability is just a step in the right direction. When Warren Schaefer pretty much blew the game by pitching to James Wood, with Seth Halverson and that walk-off home run, what did Warren Schaefer do? He goes up post-game and he says, that is on me.
Totally.
I have faith in my guy, but in this situation, I should have trusted my gut. I should have done things differently.
Yep.
I'm going to have a hard time looking at myself in the mirror for this. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow.
Exactly.
We'll not make the same mistake the next time.
And you hear that and you say, oh, well, guess what?
Good.
Next time it comes up, guess what? Hopefully he learns his lesson. This isn't a mistake you make twice.
But you feel more confident in that, right?
And there might be 50 of those mistakes that he has to make to learn from. Like, you hope you hire a manager who has pretty good senses coming in, so you don't have to go through this entire growing process. But hey, hopefully that's just one little box checked. It's like, yeah, in that situation, he learned this thing. And he'll have to learn this, he'll have to learn this, he'll have to learn this. But again, with the Rockies, all it takes is just, we're going to try something. Or like, this is why we think this didn't work. People, as he said, think that they don't care whether the Rockies win or lose. That
Which
they're just there.
100% true.
All you have to say is, yeah, we prefer they win. And boom, all of a sudden, like, that is better than what people believe in you right now.
But just that we're willing to recognize that this is not working, and we're going to do necessary things to change. I've always pushed back that on the notion that Dick Monfort doesn't care about winning.
Totally.
That all Dick Monfort cares about is just making money. Because if that was true, Dick Monfort would do the best that he could to put a winning lineup out there, because he knows if he puts a winning team out there on the field, he's going to make a hell of a lot more money than he's making right now. Because as Eric says in the chat, the Savannah Bananas are going to be the biggest turnout at Coors Field this year, right? Like you want to make money, you got to go put a winning team out there. So yes, Dick Monfort cares about winning. It's about doing the uncomfortable things, recognizing your own faults, and making the necessary changes to become that, to invest into that, to invest into an analytics department that, it goes above and beyond other teams, because you recognize that you have a X factor at elevation that is different than other teams. So you have to make up for that in other areas. To invest in your minor league development system, because the Rockies on paper have the least amount of coaches in the minor league system out of any other organization. That can't be happening. You need to be drafting and developing properly, right? Like, those are the things you have to do as an owner, that if you tell your fans, I care about winning, I want to win, then show us. Then show us.
Again, like, as crazy as it sounds, sports teams, not necessarily the best investment. There's one of the big stories coming out from the Lakers just sold. It's like, Jerry Buss bought the Lakers for $67.5 million in 1979, sold them $10 billion.
That'll work, yeah.
But if he had just put that $67.5 million in the S&P 500, he would have had $13 billion. Because again, like all these numbers, and it's the same thing with the Broncos, where it's like, wow, Pat Bowlen bought them for so cheap. They sold for these billions of dollars. And it's like, yeah, actually, put it in the S&P 500, and it turns out that just kind of things go up.
Yeah, but I mean, most people don't put $67 billion into the
That's
S&P 500.
And whatever the Monforts put into the Rockies, though, you could have just...
It's a good investment.
I'm curious whether they wound up saying like, oh yeah, we actually came out way ahead because we're doing this to the Rockies. If they just wanted money, there are other ways to go about getting money.
And they have loads of money. Yeah, it's just, it is... It's an
their
interesting
only
thing
hobby.
to think about. It is. And I'm glad we got to see the Monforts on record. I'm glad we got to see them talking. I need more of that. Not to get greedy, but I need to see more of that as this season progresses, because the Rockies are not going to be this comeback team that gets surprises everyone. And speaking of surprises, by the way, real quick side note, I was talking to we were kind of sitting in the dugout with some other media members, and we were talking about how this season kind of turned out the way that it did, and some people who are very close to the Monforts and to Bill Schmidt and within that organization, kind of said that they're convinced that I think the Monforts and Bill Schmidt in the front office fully expected that this could be a season that they shocked baseball positively. Like we turned into the Kansas City Royals. That was their expectation. So that when things started going bad, there was panic. Like it was like we send Jordan Beck down, immediately. We bring Zach Veen up. We're bringing Chase Dollander up. Like we're freaking out because in their heads they went into this season instead of saying we're going to take a step in the right direction. This is not going to be a winning season, but we're going to step forward here. We're going to work on growth and development. It was like no, we're going to surprise some people. We heard Bill Schmidt say that. Like you never know. Like we could surprise some people.
Yep.
And
best defense in baseball history.
Yeah, and it's like no, that like everyone expected. I mean, even when Spence and I, who were very optimistic, all three of us were very optimistic about the Rockies. We weren't sitting there saying they're going to go surprise the world. It was more of just like, hey, they might not lose as many games.
Yeah. What if they get hot at the end and you're like, wait, could they get to 500? And it's like probably not going to happen. But maybe you get to September and say like, I don't know, 20-10, and they could get to 500.
Yeah. So like my point is just that like we can't be panicking anymore. We can't be having these panic moments. There needs to be a plan, and it needs to be executed consistently and efficiently throughout a 5-year window. And we felt like the Rockies were, or at least they were saying they were doing that, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah.
So anyways, we got to hit our last break of the show. After the break, though, stock up, stock down, Dodger preview, and we talk about this nice win that we got for the Rockies. Talk about all that coming up next. Well, if you guys have watched this show a lot, you know that I am a huge fan of my tried and trusty Toyota. It's had an incredible run with me. It's still kicking 250,000 miles, and there is a reason for that. Toyota is an incredible vehicle. You really can't go wrong. There's so many different choices. And I will say, I'm in the market to buy a new car. I think my wife and I are starting to look at getting a car for me at the end of summer. But, I cannot go away from Toyota. I mean, we're looking at, probably a RAV4, maybe a Tacoma, but there's so many different choices. You've got the 4Runner, the Tundra, but they've also got, some hybrid options as well. The Tundra i4's Max hybrid truck is an incredible vehicle. So many different choices. You really can't go wrong. So be sure you visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe in Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. And also, if you are going to be going to the game this week, or any of the games, Dodgers series in town, you got to use Game Time. I know I say it all the time, but Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, and there is a reason for that. We were just going to the game on Friday. I unfortunately missed it because I was doing another broadcast, but I know you guys were all at the Friday Rooftop Club and used that Game Time app, got great deals, cheap tickets. Not only are Rockies cheap to begin with, but use that Game Time app. You might even be making money at that point. It's probably not confirmed, but it feels like it.
It's one of those things where like right now, the most expensive Broncos ticket is the Cowboys when they come, because all Cowboys fans buy them. $380 to get in.
Sure.
Week 18 against the Chargers could be a massive game. Like one or both teams trying to make the playoffs, maybe the AFC West, $70.
Yeah.
It's like half the price of most of the games.
It's great.
And it's like, could you just buy those right now and then sell them a little bit later on?
Yeah.
You might be making money.
You might be. You really might. Game Time has incredible deals, last minute tickets and zone deals. They've got good stuff. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use that code DNVR, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Stock up and stock down. Let's do it. We've seen some good baseball, relatively good baseball. The series against the Diamondbacks wasn't the worst.
No,
wasn't the best.
I thought they could win that series, though.
I did too.
But then when they win one of 3 games, you're just like, yeah, well, maybe that is a pretty good result, actually.
Good enough.
Can't be too picky.
For the Rockies, that's good enough. The Rockies have 9 wins in the month of June. We are going into a very tough stretch, though. You've got the Dodgers this week. You've got the Brewers next week. Who's after the Brewers? I haven't even looked. Is it like
White Sox already?
Oh, it is the White Sox.
Yeah,
okay, so
4th of July.
We get a breather. I say a breather. We'll see. That actually might be the most electric series of this entire season.
Totally.
But yeah, Dodgers coming into town. Stock up and stock down. Before we get into the Dodgers stuff, who are you up on? Whose stock's going up right now for the Rockies as we get close to the trade deadline?
Let's see. Thinking through, Ritter's stock is probably a little bit down.
Well,
let's start with that one. That's the first one that comes to mind. I know it's a down, not an up, but
and to preface, Ritter's not on the trade block most likely.
True.
But yeah, I could see that.
That's the one where
Ritter's is leveling out.
Last week, maybe we talked about where it's like results are there, 6-game hitting streak, process like maybe not so good, but as long as the results keep coming, maybe you'll figure out the process a bit. Now we're starting to see that come back to earth a bit. So I think that's the first one, at least in my heart, of a stock down. Because I was like, maybe he'll figure it out.
Yeah, Ritter's interesting because I think the tools are there. He's just one of those guys that is in just need of a growth year. Like this is a growth season for him. He's going to have his growing pains. He's struggling to catch up on some of those fastballs. His, hard hit balls are pretty low right now. He's getting a lot of soft contact. He's fast, so he can make things happen. His bunt looked really good the other day. I mean, he's got good stuff. And his tools are there. We haven't seen him hit a home run yet. His power hasn't really showed up. That's just a minor leaguer who's hasn't quite gotten to the big league level hitting wise yet. I think he will catch up. His defense has been great. He's made some good plays at shortstop.
Tyler Freeman's stock is up. That's a tough one because his stock has been high.
Huge stock up.
But even for him, just continuing to do what he was doing would be stock up because the whole thing with him was like, sure, he's hitting 305 or whatever, but do you really believe it?
330
exactly.
Almost.
And then in the past week or so, he's gotten that up to 330 with hit, two hits, and it's just every single game.
Two pitches into the game, he's crushing it out to
totally.
Left, you're just like, what are we doing?
And so I think again, for him, all he needed for stock up was to keep doing what he was doing, and instead,
here he is.
He's gotten even better. So yeah, he's getting to the point where you wonder at some point a team believes it. At some point, a team says like, "Hey, we'll trade for him because we think
he's having a Jake Bird season." In my mind, where you're like going into this season, no one expected Jake Bird to be a trade piece, a guy that we were going to be, touting as our top trade, opportunity at the deadline. And here we are. Jake Bird is like, other teams are sitting there saying, "Yeah, he's the real deal. Like his stuff looks good. It's got longevity. It plays at Coors Field. It's good." I think Tyler Freeman's starting to get into that conversation of he might be the real deal. Now, I had someone ask me the other day, is Tyler Freeman a guy that actually could turn into a piece you could build around? The answer is absolutely no. Tyler is a great player right now. He's relatively young too, so you could theoretically keep him on a team. But again, you're looking 4-5 years out for your Rockies to be competitive again, unless there's huge changes coming up, which I just don't see the Rockies being that type of team. At best, you're 3 years out from even competing again. I don't see Tyler Freeman being in that mix. You have to
I agree.
Put him in the trade conversation.
I agree.
Even if he's just a sweetener, on the Rymac deal or Herman Marquez. You say, hey, we'll trade you Herman Marquez and red hot Tyler Freeman to go get two of your good prospects.
Yep. And I would add though, so he definitely isn't a player that you could build around, but he's a player that if you went into next year with him as one of like your 4 bench guys, I'd be like, oh, good spot for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, he's out there playing just about every day because he does again. I think the next year, but again, it's not a piece you build around. It's a piece that when you're built, if you have that guy there too, then it's like, that's nice to have.
So that's the point.
Exactly.
I think other teams need him more than we do.
Totally.
The Dodgers, with their thousands of injuries. The Diamondbacks.
Totally.
I mean, looking at the Diamondbacks
or you look
injury
at like
list,
the top of the lineup for the Mets. Throw him into the back of the lineup, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this might balance out a bit more.
A utility guy who can just get on base every single time he's up.
Yep.
There are tons of teams that need that. The Rockies do not need that right now. We do not need that for the next couple of years. So, that's my take with Tyler Freeman. Stock up on Tyler Freeman.
So what are you... So I agree. You want to move him. You want to get something for him. But like I said, I wouldn't mind if they had him on the bench next year. Like I would feel good about that, which means that there's a line you draw somewhere where it's like, I'm not just taking anything for him. If you can obviously you get team's top 10 prospect, you do it. But like, is it like top 20, top 25? Because I think back to like some of those reliever deals last year where you bring in your guy Blaylock, but then also the other two.
What is it? Was Juan Mejia part of that?
I didn't
deal.
Think
it was.
So.
There was another guy that hasn't made it.
Yeah.
Yet.
But like that's kind of that borderline. That tier is like, I might do it, but at the same time, I don't have much belief.
Yeah.
Is it really worth it when this could be a guy who like balance things out for you this year and maybe like next year when you're trying to like dodge 100 losses could help out in that way?
Yeah, I don't
know where my line is.
I just don't. I first of all, we have this joke in the press box where Kevin Henry, who's been on the show plenty of times, always says, guys, I don't think we're talking enough about Tyler Freeman. And I'm like, are we? Are we really? And it's kind of changed because it's like, I mean, he's playing good enough where we are going to talk about him now.
323 or whatever.
But at the same time, he feels like a glorified Adael Amador to me. A little bit more utility.
If Adael Amador could hit, I'd be pretty hyped right now.
Sure. But yeah, so I just don't quite trust it yet. So I'm like, get whatever you can from him.
Okay.
Get whatever you can. This also kind of feels like almost a glorified Nolan Jones in his rookie season, where you were like, man, this guy can kind of swing it. He's playing well. And then he just kind of falls off after that.
If you keep him,
I'm worried about that.
And sign him again next year, there's a 30% chance that by this point next season, he's DFA'd.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Which is, you have to
get
keep
whatever
that
you
in mind.
can for him. I need him to be a sweetener on some deal.
Sweetener makes sense.
Stock up. Mickey Moniak, man.
Yeah.
That you talk about a deal that Bill Schmidt made that we all kind of were like, huh? Why? I mean, cool, fine, whatever. We used to like him when he was, the number one overall pick. Now he's kind of washed up, and here he is. He's a good player. I think Mickey Moniak still has a couple good years left.
It's one of those things where it's like, for him, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and see what exactly didn't work. Sometimes when he hits the ball, I feel like, there isn't much power there. But there are other times when he hits it and you're just like...
But you also look at him and you're like, you just look like a normal dude. You don't look like you'd hit a 450-foot bomb.
And then you look and it's like, 11 home runs this year. And you're like, I guess maybe he does have that. Batting 245 with 11 home runs at this point.
But his numbers in the month of June... Again,
totally.
All of Rockies are like that, but I mean, they're crazy numbers.
He had like the dip in the middle of the season, came in hot, went down. But I think if you can move him, do we see him differently at all than Tyler Freeman?
Yes. I do think because Moniak's older, and if you can get something for him, great. I think everyone who's available to be traded outside of Goodman and Tovar should be traded. But if you end up staying with Moniak, because he's a little bit older, how old is he? 26?
27.
27? Okay.
Freeman's 26 now.
Realistically, I'm okay with a average guy staying on the Rockies for a year or two, just taking a position spot while you give some of those younger while you bring in new prospects, let them continue to develop. And because again, we're not competing, right now. So, but you also still need to put a lineup out there. Schaefer still needs to go out and try to win ball games. That's his job, whether you're rebuilding a team or not. So Mickey feels like he's in the middle enough where you're like, he's not good enough to go get some big prospect back. If you can throw him in as a sweetener, great, I'll take that. But if not, I'm okay with them keeping him on the roster for next year.
Okay. See,
he's kind of in the middle for me.
I agree. Because in theory, to me, if you're a healthy baseball team, what you do is have like 9 good veterans out there who go and play good baseball. And then you hopefully have a prospect who outplays one of them. And you're just like, oh, this guy's came up, and guess what? He's even better. So
Cubs are kind of the same way too.
Yeah. And like you came close to that when you're just like, hey, we've got Ryan McMahon. We don't need Nolan Arenado. It's like, maybe a little bit off on that one. But or
just a bit outside.
We've got the second baseman, Brendan Rodgers. But he was a big pick, so whatever. I think while you'd prefer that you have somebody better than Mickey Moniak, who you just kind of like pencil into one of those 3 outfield spots and say like, hey, Yanquiel, can you outperform him?
Sure.
He is at least like a baseline for you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's average.
He's like, you throw him out there and...
He's a safe pick.
Exactly. He's not going to be the reason you're bad, but hopefully you get somebody who can outplay him.
Totally. That would be best case scenario. Stock down. The only guy that I really have stock down on right now, and it's just because he's just struggling so much, is Brenton Doyle. His offense, even when he has shades where he like hits a ball to the wall and you're like, that looked good, maybe he's back. It just kind of he hasn't found his rhythm.
Yep.
He's in his head. The stuff off the field is really, really messing with him. I still have faith in him. I still think Doyle's fine. I know people are kind of starting to panic a little bit on Doyle. I still think Doyle's totally fine. I think he needs a break like the All-Star. He needs like a week off to kind of get his head on straight, spend time with his family, and then kind of get back into it. I think Doyle will be fine. But that hit I unfortunately stocked down on Doyle for the time being. Hopefully that changes soon. We got to talk about the Dodgers series coming up here. Dodgers are in town tomorrow. The Rockies are playing better baseball. The Rockies have shown to us that they can win, and they've also shown that they can play good teams kind of well. You were in every single game against the Cubs.
Yep.
You beat the Yankees. You beat the Braves, right? Like, I mean, heck, you even beat the Diamondbacks twice this year. Is there a world in which the Rockies beat the Dodgers even once?
Yep.
They were swept last time. Do they beat them once this year?
Yep.
Or this time around?
I think. How many more games? Do you know how many more times they play them? It's got to be like 8 more.
I think 8 more.
Yeah, 8 more. I say they get 2 of those 8. I think they get 2 of the 8. I think without knowing the exact pitching matchup.
I know Yamamoto's tomorrow. Or, Wednesday.
Yamamoto versus Dollander is interesting. And I mean, Ehrman tomorrow too.
Are we a little...
I kind of... As Warren Schaefer said, best 6-game ERA of his career.
Yeah, Herman looks good. Herman looks better.
Stock up.
Stock up. Hey, stock up. Stock up on Herman. By the way, real quick, if you guys are watching on television right now, head over to thednvr.com to continue the conversation. We are going into extra innings here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. So if you're watching on television, head over to thednvr.com to just briefly continue this conversation.
So I go from, I think they could probably, maybe, to then looking and saying, Ehrman tomorrow. Hey, you could get a good start. and then the next day,
who's pitching tomorrow for the Dodgers?
It's not. They don't have anything listed here. TBD.
It's check
bullpen day, which is kind of common for them because they have. That's the other thing is they're down 7 guys who'd otherwise be in their rotation, but they just keep going down. And
yet they have 7 other good ace pitchers on in their roster.
And then you look at the next one and you're just like, Yamamoto versus Dollander. You take Yamamoto every time. Boy, would that be a good time for Dollander to have big.
It would
6 innings, 1 run, and you're just like, I know they're right there.
It would. However, I'm a little nervous about Dollander.
Me too.
He's not looked good over his last 3-4 starts. His stuff just isn't there. It's not even his stuff isn't there. His accuracy, his location, his command is
Halverson too.
All off. Yeah, Halverson too. But Halverson has moments where you're like, damn, that is
Vodnik
unhittable.
at times also. That's the other one.
I have more faith in Vodnik right now than Halverson.
Me too.
Vodnik's been okay, but so I'm a little nervous. Dollander against the Dodgers. I hate to say that's a big game for him because it's the Dodgers, but given his last 3-ish starts, I'm a little nervous about Dollander, especially with Feltner and Kyle Freeland coming back here soon. Freeland most likely getting the start on Friday, by the way, even though that hasn't been announced.
But then so you go from that one to then the final game would be
Thursday.
Gomber, who again. That first game, though, you think back to that first game with Kershaw, who played poorly. It probably was a fluke. Could we get another fluke? But again, so I've talked myself into all 3. So
God,
give me the series.
So the Rockies are sweeping the Dodgers. You heard it here first.
I could see the path in all 3. Whereas typically
I can make a path in everything.
A month ago I could not see paths. A month ago I see that guy's pitching and this guy we're cooked. Senz is on the mound. Yeah, we're cooked.
Dude, Senz had a decent start, man.
He's another one where you look back trending up in that it hasn't always been perfect. 2 earned runs in his last start. Look good. No earned runs the start before. 7 and 4 innings before that, not great. No earned runs in the start before that. 7 before that. So you're at least you're seeing some good to go with the bad.
You're in it.
Ehrman's in the good. If
Don't let the Rockies get hot. Don't let the Rockies get hot.
60 wins might be in play.
And then here come the Dodgers. So we'll see how this series goes. I'm excited. We're going to be hanging out at Coors Field these next couple days. I'll be there tomorrow and Wednesday. I will not be at the Thursday game. But tomorrow and Wednesday, I'll be hanging out there. Are you going to go to a couple games? It's probably more expensive tickets.
So the thing is, they are, and that's one of the tough parts. So I'm gone for the 4th of July, which is the White Sox.
Same.
I'm gone in mid-July for their other home series in July. I can't remember who it is. And then I'll be back and Broncos starts. So this is probably my last 3 games. Maybe I can squeak in it's a Saturday night and there's they're home and you have nothing left to do. These might be my last 3 games of the season.
You'll make it work.
Yep.
You'll make it work.
Yep.
It'll be fun. We'll check it out. We'll keep an eye on things. You can follow us if you don't already on DNVR Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, DNVR_Rockies. Thanks for jumping on again.
Oh, yeah.
Going to be a good week.
See you Friday.
Going to be a good week. We'll see you Friday.
Yep.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Dion and Yaya for pressing the buttons, making us look good. We appreciate you guys as always. We'll see you on Friday. We've got a special edition show on Friday, 10:30 start time because we're going to be hanging out at DU for a live show. So we'll see you guys 10:30 on Friday out at the University of Denver. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.